Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we will be looking at idea number 1, which will be how a few men redrew Africa and the Middle East. Today, the modern borders of Africa and the Middle East are widely recognized as some of the most complex and contested on Earth. What is often not fully appreciated, however, is the foundational historical event that created this complexity. A staggering statistical reality sets the stage for this narrative. Over 50% of the world's current borders are a direct legacy of British and French imperialism. This includes nearly every country in Africa south of the Sahara and the majority of countries in the Middle East. So here's how it happened. The roots of this issue can be traced back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries when European powers, primarily Britain and France, embarked on a frenzy of colonization across the African continent. Their objective was simple: exploit the vast natural resources of Africa, while also gaining strategic advantage over one another. In the process, they completely reshaped the political geography of the region without any regard for the pre-existing ethnic, linguistic, or cultural boundaries. Instead, they drew borders that often divided communities of people who shared common identities and histories or joined together groups with deep-rooted rivalries. For instance, in the Congo, the Belgian colonial administration oversaw the brutal extraction of resources such as rubber and minerals. In order to facilitate this extraction, they implemented a system that denied the local population basic rights and subjected them to appalling mistreatment. Similarly, French West Africa was a grouping that brought together present-day Senegal, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and parts of Benin and Togo under a single colonial administration. Each of these regions had its own distinct languages, cultures, and histories, yet they were forcibly united by the French colonial authorities. One notable consequence of this forced unification was the spread of French as the official language across all of these regions, a linguistic legacy that persists to this day. As the First World War began, the Ottoman Empire, which controlled much of the Middle East at the time, found itself on the side of Germany. Secretly, the British and the French had already been negotiating the division of the Ottoman Empire's territory, and after the Ottomans lost the war, those agreements became official through the Sykes-Picot Agreement in 1916 and the subsequent San Remo Conference in 1920. Both agreements divided the former Ottoman lands among the British and the French spheres of influence. For example, the Sykes-Picot Agreement divided the Kurds between several different states, denying them the possibility of a unified homeland. It also contradicted a prior British promise to create an independent Arab state in exchange for their support against the Ottoman Empire. These agreements not only disregarded the diversity within these regions, but also sowed the seeds of future conflicts by uniting populations with historical tensions and dividing those with potential for unity. But why did the European imperialists do this? Well, the primary motivation was administrative convenience. By drawing straight lines on maps, the colonial powers could more easily divide and control their newfound territories. This made it simpler to collect taxes, conscript soldiers, and extract resources. It also helped to limit the potential for internal rebellions, since communities that had historically interacted and traded with each other were now separated. Additionally, this approach served the strategic interests of the imperial powers. For instance, by controlling key waterways such as the Nile River and the Suez Canal, Britain could maintain its dominance in trade routes between Europe and Asia. Similarly, by controlling access to the Mediterranean Sea, France could protect its North African territories and prevent potential threats from emerging there. However, this artificial redrawing of boundaries has had profound and lasting consequences. By imposing these straight lines on the diverse populations of Africa and the Middle East, colonial powers sowed the seeds of future conflicts and instability. For example, the division of the Kurdish population across Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria has been a source of tension and violence in the region for decades. The Kurds, who share a common language and culture, have been denied the right to self-determination and statehood, leading to persistent human rights abuses and armed conflicts. Similarly, The imposition of colonial borders in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has contributed to the country's instability and violence. The country's vast mineral wealth has been a source of conflict and exploitation, and the weak central government has been unable to effectively manage these resources or provide security for its citizens. Furthermore, these straight lines ignored the complexities of local power dynamics. In many cases, it placed leaders who had little legitimacy or support among the population in power, leading to widespread corruption and discontent. For instance, in many parts of Africa, colonial authorities installed puppet leaders who were loyal to the crown but had no real connection to their people. This lack of legitimacy has contributed to a legacy of authoritarianism and instability in many post-colonial states. The implications of this historical event continue to resonate today. Many of the conflicts and challenges facing Africa and the Middle East can be traced back to the artificial borders imposed during the era of colonialism. Resolving these issues requires a nuanced understanding of the historical roots of the problem. Simply erasing the borders would cause even more problems than it solves. Therefore, a careful and inclusive approach to conflict resolution and nation-building that takes into account the historical grievances and aspirations of local communities is crucial. This could include measures such as promoting dialogue and reconciliation between conflicting groups, supporting initiatives that foster cross-border cooperation, and implementing reforms that promote good governance and respect for human rights. However, achieving this level of cooperation and reform is easier said than done. Many of these countries are still grappling with the legacy of colonialism, and the consequences of arbitrary borders continue to be deeply felt. Despite the challenges, it is essential to acknowledge the profound impact of colonial borders on contemporary conflicts and to work towards solutions that address the root causes of instability and violence. Only then can these regions hope to achieve lasting peace and prosperity. So let us know in the comments what you thought about this idea, and if you agree that the way borders were drawn up had a huge impact on the world we live in today. Also, if you want to learn about more controversial topics and gain a deeper understanding of the world around us, consider subscribing to the channel. We tackle controversial topics from multiple perspectives, aiming to shed light on various viewpoints and encourage critical thinking. So please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on our upcoming episodes. Thank you for watching.